So welcome to November 2019 Management Accounting paper discussion at the operational level. So I will first read the instructions given to the candidates in this paper. So like in other papers, you are given 15 minutes reading time in addition to 3 hours writing time. All questions are compulsory. Question number 1 consists of 20 multiple choice questions which carry 40 marks. And from question number 2 to question number 5, you get 4 essay type questions in part 2. Which are all compulsory. All answers must be in English language, and also each answer you have to begin on a separate page on the answer booklet. So in part 1 there are 20 multiple choice questions, as I told you. So I'll read the questions from 1.1 to 1.20. Thereafter we'll discuss the answers. Management accounting provides financial information, non-financial information, both financial and non-financial information, corporate level information. So as we know, management accounting provides both financial and non-financial information. Therefore, the correct answer is answer C. Which phrase best describes the role of contemporary management accountant? Management accountants prepare the financial statements of an organization. Management accountants facilitate the decision-making process within an organization. Management accountants make the key decisions within an organization. Management accountants are primarily information collectors. So, the main function of a management accountant in a contemporary organization is to provide information for decision makers to make decisions. So, out of the 4 answers given, the most appropriate answer would be answer B. Of course, management accountants prepare financial statements. Management accountants take part in the decision-making process, but more importantly, management accountants are responsible to provide information which others can use to make decisions. So the correct answer out of the 4 answers given is answer B. Product and service costing information is prepared for manufacturing companies with inventory, merchandising companies, service providers, or for manufacturing companies without inventory. So product and service costing information. Both these types of costing information we prepare for, not for manufacturing companies, not for service companies, but for merchandising companies. So the correct answer is answer B. Which of the following statements is most appropriate to explain a budget? A plan of receipts and payments prepared for a forthcoming period, a forecast of operational results for a forthcoming year, a plan of actions to be performed in order to achieve an objective within a forthcoming period, a plan of action prepared for a forthcoming period and expressed in quantitative terms. So the budget is actually a plan prepared for a forthcoming period, and budget is expressed in quantitative terms. Therefore, the correct answer, the most appropriate answer would be answer D. In comparison to the traditional manufacturing environment, which of the following is true in relation to overheads in a JIT environment? They are more easily traced to products. They are frequently direct in nature. They include rent, insurance, and utilities. Most of the costs are likely to be indirect in nature. So basically, this question is asking about overheads in a JIT environment. So overheads in a JIT environment would include expenses like rent, insurance, and utilities. So out of the 4 answers, the correct answer would be answer C. Then 1.6 is a numerical question. A company has prepared its budget for a period on the basis of available machine capacity of 30,000 hours per month. The amount of production overhead has been estimated to be 180,000 for the same period. Out of this amount, 40,000 is for machine depreciation and the balance is for semi-variable overhead, of which 30% is found to be fixed. The company has decided to prepare its flexible budget for 90% of the capacity. Which of the following would be the amount of overheads appearing in the flexible budget? So, since this is a numerical question, I will go to the working of the answer. So, I'll explain this answer. So, the question tells us, these are the information given in the question. Question tells us the capacity is 30,000 hours per month. Overheads are 180,000 rupees per month. In these overheads, there's a 100% fixed overhead, which is depreciation, and the balance overheads are semi-variable. In the semi-variable, 30% is fixed and 70% is variable. Remember here, 70% variable in the semi-variable is for 100% capacity. In other words, the company's total overheads for 100% capacity is 180,000 rupees per month. Out of that, 140,000 is semi-variable. So in the semi-variable, 70% is variable. So 70% out of 140,000 is the variable expenses for 100% capacity. We have to prepare a flexible budget for 90% capacity. So how we prepare a flexible budget? The flexible budget should include both fixed cost and variable cost. So we already know that there is a 100% fixed cost, which is depreciation, that is this 40,000 rupees. It is 100% fixed cost. And also we know in the semi-variable cost, 30% is fixed. As I told you, semi-variable cost for 100% capacity is 140,000. From that, 30% is fixed. So that fixed amount will come for 90% capacity as well. So 30% of 140,000, you can look at the formula here. 30% of 140,000 will be 42,000 rupees. This is 30% of 140,000. 30% of 140,000. That is how you get 42,000 rupees. Then we come to the most important part, variable overheads. Variable overheads at 100% capacity is 70% of 140,000. Therefore, we need to estimate variable overheads for 90% capacity. So how do we calculate that? I will write the formula here. Out of the semi-variable cost of 140,000, we know 70% is variable at 100% capacity. We need to estimate the variable overheads for 90% capacity. So we need to multiply that by 90%. Then only we get 88,200. You can see the same formula here. Out of 140,000, 70% is the total variable overheads for 100% capacity. We are flexing that for 90%. So when we flex that for 90%, variable overheads for 90% capacity will be 88,200. So total overheads for 90% capacity, 170,200. Correct answer would be answer B. For 1.6, correct answer would be answer B. Then 1.7, all of the following statements about budgeting is true except. So the examiner is asking the incorrect statement. Budgeting helps managers to determine the resources needed to meet their goals. That is correct. Budgeting is a key ingredient in good decision making. That is also correct. Budgeting is a bookkeeping task. No, that is incorrect. The focus of budgeting is planning. That is correct. So the incorrect answer is answer C. 1.8. A manufacturing company benchmarks the performance of its accounts receivable department with that of a leading credit card company. So basically, two different companies. One company is a manufacturing company, other company is a credit card company. But this manufacturing company is benchmarking its accounts receivable function with that of a credit card company. So basically, they are benchmarking the function. So which of the following benchmarking is used by the company? So the question is also about what kind of benchmarking is this, whether it is internal benchmarking, competitive benchmarking, functional benchmarking, or strategic benchmarking. Since the manufacturing company is benchmarking the accounts receivable function with the credit card company, this is none other than functional benchmarking. So the correct answer is answer C. Which of the following best describes target costing? First one, reducing cost considering a desired profit margin from a competitive market price, setting a price by adding a desired profit margin to reduction cost, setting a cost for the use in calculation of the variances, setting a selling price for the company to aim the long run. So out of the four statements, the statement which best describes target costing is statement A, or the first statement. It basically says target cost is a cost which is arrived by deducting a desired profit margin from a competitive price. So the correct answer is answer A. 1.10, information relating to two processes F and G are as follows. So there are two processes. For both processes, we are given the normal loss, input and output. So is there an abnormal loss or an abnormal gain in relation to each process? We are asked in each process whether we have an abnormal loss or an abnormal gain. So again, I will go to the working of the question. You can see how I have worked out here. So in process F, input, these information are exactly from the question. So in process F, input 65,000, normal loss 8%. Therefore, normal loss units is 8% of 65,000, 5,200. Expected output 59,800. That is the difference between 65,000 and 5,200. Actual output given by the examiner 58,900. So actual output is less than the expected output. There's an abnormal loss of 900. In process G, input 37,500, normal loss 5%, normal loss units 1,875, expected output 35,625, actual output as given 35,700. So actual output is more, therefore there's an abnormal gain. So the correct answer is, in process F we have an abnormal loss, in process G we have an abnormal gain. So correct answer out of the 4 answers would be answer C. In process F, abnormal loss. In process G, abnormal gain. 1.11. A company's operating costs are 60% variable and 40% fixed. So which of the following variances would change if the company switches from absorption costing approach to marginal costing approach? So basically, in absorption costing approach, we calculate product cost by taking into account fixed overhead cost. In marginal costing approach, fixed overhead cost we treat as a period cost. So basically they are asking, if they switch from absorption costing to marginal costing, out of the given variances, which variance will change? So what are the given variances? Direct material efficiency variance, which is 100% variable. Variable overhead efficiency variance, which is also 100% variable. Sales volume, it doesn't relate to any of the cost. Fixed overhead expenditure variance. So out of the 4 variances given, if the company switches from absorption costing to marginal costing, the variance that will change is fixed overhead expenditure variance. So the correct answer is answer D. Limiting budget factor is useful in planning. A, to limit the use of assets which enforce constraints in operations, to optimize the operations within a capacity constraint, to limit the expenditure to the ceiling enforced for a budget period, to optimize the availability of assets which enforce constraints in operations. So when you have a limiting budget factor or a limiting factor, what we can do is we can optimize the operations using the limiting factor. In other words, if there's a limiting factor, we should know as to how to get the best out of the operations, keeping that limiting factor in our side. So the correct answer out of the 4 answers given is answer B, which is to optimize the operations within a capacity constraint. In other words, keeping that limiting factor or keeping that constraint, we need to optimize the operations in order to maximize the profit. So correct answer is answer B. 1.13. A company makes 60% of total sales to retail customers and the balance to wholesale customers. As per its credit policy, only wholesale customers are facilitated with 1 month credit. So for wholesale customers, which is 40% of its total sales, they are given 1 month credit. As per the general practice, 90% of credits are collected within the credit period, which means within 30 days. But 10% takes between 30 to 40 days, which means balance 10% pays in the second month after sales. As per sales records, sales forecast for the current quarter and the forthcoming quarter are 2,550,000 and 3 million respectively. The estimated cash flow from customer credit collection for the forthcoming quarter. So they're not asking about the total sales collection, they're asking customer credit collection. So for the forthcoming quarter, customer credit collection will have to work out. So you can look at the workings here. In 1.13, I have put down the given details by the examiner. Out of total sales, retail sales are 60%, wholesale sales are 40%, and for wholesale customers, the company is given 1 month credit. Out of the wholesale sales for which the company is given 1 month credit, 90% of the customers pay within 30 days, and balance 10% takes up to 40 days, which means they pay in the second month after the sales. So in the current quarter, we are told sales value is 2,550,000. So the breakup of that would be retail sales 1,530,000, that is 60% of 2,550,000. Wholesale sales 1,020,000, that is 40% of 2,550,000. We know we are giving credit only for wholesale customers. So we need to identify therefore per month wholesale sales. Per month wholesale sales. So per month wholesale sales would be 1,20,000 divided by 3, 340,000 during the current quarter. I can do the same thing for the next quarter or the forthcoming quarter. In the forthcoming quarter, sales value is 3 million, retail sales 1.8 million, wholesale sales 1.2 million. That is the total sales figure for the quarters. Therefore, per month sales is 400,000 for wholesale customers. Now, since my objective is to calculate the credit collection in the forthcoming quarter, I need to do this work in the forthcoming quarter. I have 3 months, month 1, month 2, and month 3. So in the first month, in the forthcoming quarter, we'll be collecting the sales of the preceding quarter. In other words, sales of the current quarter. We know wholesale sales in the last month of the current quarter is 340,000, from which 90% we collect in the first month of the forthcoming quarter. Balance 10% we collect in the second month of the forthcoming quarter. So this 306,000 is 90% of last month's sales in the current quarter. This 34,000 is 10% of last month's sales in the current quarter. Then from the first month's sales in the forthcoming quarter, we collect 90% in the second month of the forthcoming quarter. In other words, per month sales in the forthcoming quarter is 400,000. That is, assuming the first month sales also, from that we are collecting 90% in the second month. And the balance 10% in the first month sales of the forthcoming quarter, we collect in the third month. In the same way, out of the second month sales in the forthcoming quarter, which is also assumed to be 400,000, we are collecting 90% in the third month. So this 360,000 is 90% of this 400,000, which we are assuming to be equal across the 3 months. In other words, in month 1, month 2, month 3, we are assuming monthly wholesale sales is 400,000. So in month 2 also, wholesale sales we are assuming to be 400,000. From that, we are collecting 90% in the third month. Therefore, we can collect the total collection, credit collection, total credit collection in months 1, 2, and 3, and I can get the total here. Total would come to 1,100,000. Unfortunately, this answer has not been given in the suggested solutions, but the correct answer has to be 1.1 million. That is the answer to 1.13. So we'll go back to the question paper now. 1.14, direct labor time per unit of the product is 12 minutes. Standard wages per hour is 240, but actual wage rate is 245. During a period, 15,000 units have been produced with 3,050 hours. That includes 90 idle hours due to machine maintenance. So labor efficiency variance. So we'll work it out. 1.14. Standard time per unit is 12 minutes. Standard time per unit is 12 minutes. Standard rate per hour is 240 rupees. Actual rate per hour 245. Actual output is 15,000 units. Therefore, based on the actual output, we can calculate the standard hours. Standard hours, that is 15,000 units into 12 minutes divided by 60 in order to convert to hours. So standard hours 3,050. Actual hours 3,050. But this includes 90 idle hours. Therefore, the company has actually worked. The company has actually worked, or productive hours are 3,050 minus 90, 2,960 hours. So the company has actually worked, leaving idle time 2,960 hours. Standard time is 3,000 hours. Therefore, the company has been efficient, or laborers have been efficient. So it's a favorable efficiency variance. So we can calculate the value of the variance now. Efficiency variance. Laborers have saved time. They have saved 40 hours into standard rate. When we calculate the efficiency variance, we multiply by the standard rate per hour. So efficiency variance is 9,600 favorable. And the correct answer would be answer C. So 1.15. Market share variance helps to understand. First one, the variation in revenue caused by variation in the average industry sales. The variance in sales volume caused by the variation in the share of industry sales. Variance in sales volume caused by the variation in the market share. Variance in the profit caused by any variation in the market share of the industry. So market share variance basically helps us to understand, due to the change in the market share, the impact to profit. In other words, out of the 4 answers, the correct answer would be answer D. Which of the following manufacturing situations find job order costing to be most appropriate? Brewery, a shipbuilder of oil tankers, an oil refinery, or sugar refinery. Out of these 4 industries or these 4 jobs, the most appropriate job for job order costing is shipbuilder of oil tankers, because a shipbuilder of oil tankers would undertake building ships as jobs, as individual jobs. Therefore, out of the 4 answers given, the most appropriate answer would be answer B. Shipbuilder of oil tankers, not a brewery, not oil refinery, because brewery as well as oil refinery and sugar refinery are examples for batch order costing. So the only example out of the 4 examples given here for a job order costing is building ships or shipbuilder of oil tankers. Correct answer is B. A learning curve describes A, the increase in production time as the total number of units produced increases, the rate at which an organization requires new information or acquires new information, the amount of production time per unit decreases as the total number of units produced increases. Only A and B. Learning curve, as we know, indicates, or it tells us as to by which amount production time per unit decreases when we increase the output. So in other words, if we are learning, the production time per 1 unit should decrease as we increase the output. So when we increase the output or when we increase the volume, because of our learning, the time required to manufacture each unit should decrease. That is indicated by the learning curve. So out of the 4 answers given, the most appropriate answer would be answer C. So 1.18, a standard which represents the most likely scenario can be referred to as ideal standard, attainable standard, basic standard, or average standard. A standard which represents the most likely scenario. So out of the 4 answers, if there's a standard which represents the most likely scenario, we call that standard as an attainable standard because it is something people can achieve. 119, which of the following is not a function of budgeting? Planning, motivating, decision making, controlling. So out of the 4 answers given, the function which doesn't come under budgeting, or the function that we can exclude as a function of budgeting, is decision making. In other words, we can use a budget for planning, we can use a budget to motivate individuals. A budget can be used for controlling purposes, but a budget cannot be used for decision making. So out of the 4 answers given, the answer which does not fit, or the function which does not fit for budgeting, is decision making. So last question, in question number 1, or the last multiple choice question in the November 2019 paper. One of the main features of material requirement planning. A, maintaining the lowest possible material and product levels in store via master production schedule. B, a plan of material requirements based on quantity on hand, a process of improving the quality of materials, reducing the lead times. D, creation of material requirements via exploring the bill of material. So if you look at the four answers given, describing material requirement planning, the most appropriate answer, or the answer that we can take as most accurate, is answer D, because material requirement planning is planning materials based on bill of material. So the correct answer would be answer D. So that completes question number 1, which includes 20 multiple choice questions for 40 marks. So we can now go to question number 2. So question number 2, 3, 4 and 5 are questions in part 2. So we'll first discuss question number 2 in this video discussion. A company produces and sells 4 products. Details of the products and relevant information relating to a period are given below. So they are manufacturing 4 products. We are given certain information of the 4 products. Output in units, cost, direct materials, direct labor and machine hours per unit. The 4 products are similar and are usually produced in production runs of 20 units and sold in batches of 10 units. Production overhead is currently absorbed by using the machine hour rate. So at the moment they are absorbing overheads using the machine hour rate. And the analysis of total overhead for the period is as follows. So machining cost at the machine department 10,430, setup cost 5,250, stores receiving 3,000. These are cost or cost pools. Inspection or quality control 2,100, material handling and dispatching 4,620. You have ascertained that cost drivers relating to the activities. So for machining activity, cost driver given is number of machine hours. For setups, number of production runs. For stores receiving, number of requisitions raised. Inspection or quality control, number of production runs. For material handling and dispatching, orders executed. The number of requisitions raised on the stores was 20 for each product, and the number of orders executed was 42. Number of orders executed was 42, each order being placed for a batch of 10 units for a product. So you are required to calculate the cost per unit of each product for the period if overheads are absorbed on machine hour basis based on the current method of overhead absorption. Calculate the cost per unit of each product using activity-based costing. Then briefly discuss the implications of the above 2 calculations on pricing and profit in relation to the products. So these are the requirements in question number 2. So let's now go into the working of question number 2. So I'll start that on a separate sheet. Question number 2. So we can first start with total overheads. As per the question, there are 5 overheads coming from 5 departments. Machining cost, 10,430. Setup cost, 5,250. Stores receiving, 3,600. Inspection or quality control 2,100. And material handling and dispatch 4,620. So these are the cost. I can get the total 26,000 rupees. So I have 4 products. At At the moment, overheads are absorbed based on machine hours. My 4 products are A, B, C, and D. So for each of the products, we are given machine hours per 1 unit. For each of the products, we are given machine hours per 1 unit. That is 4, 3, 2, and 3. 4, 3, 2, and 3. And then output 120, 100, 80, and 120. 120, 100, 80, and 120. So I can calculate the total machine hours. Four into 120, 480. Then for B 300, C 160, B 360. Total machine hours would be 1,300. So total machine hours 1,300. Total overheads 26,000. Therefore, I can calculate the machine hour rate. Machine hour rate would be current overhead absorption rate is machine hour rate. 26,000 overheads divided by 1,300 machine hours. So I'll word it as overhead absorption rate. Overhead absorption rate. That will be 20 rupees per machine hour. Based on 20 rupees per machine hour, I can calculate the overheads of A, B, C, and D. The question is asking to calculate the cost per unit of each product for the period if overheads are absorbed on machine hour basis. So what I can put here is, I can take from the question direct material cost of each unit. Direct material cost of 1 unit of A, 40, B 50, C 30, D 60. So 40, 50, 30, and 60. Those are direct material cost. Then I can put direct labor cost. Again, I'm taking from the question direct labor cost per 1 unit 28, 21, 14, and 21. 28, 21, 14, and 21. Then I can calculate the overhead cost based on the absorption rate. Overhead cost. Overhead absorption rate we calculated to be 20 rupees per machine hour. Each unit of A requires 4 machine hours. Therefore, overhead cost of A is 80. Overhead cost of B would be 20 into 3 machine hours per unit, 60. Overhead of C would be 20 into 2 machine hours, 40. Overhead cost of D would be 20 rupees per machine hour into 3 machine hours again. That will be 60. So now I can get the total cost per unit based on absorption costing. So this is the answer to 2.1. Total cost per unit. Overheads we have absorbed based on absorption costing. I can say here based on absorption costing. Based on absorption costing. So this is the answer to 2.1. This is the answer to 2.1. Now I can go to 2.2, which is the total cost calculation based on ABC. Before that, I need to calculate the activity rates. So how I am going to do that? I know my activities for the overheads. I can put here. These are the activities for each of the activities, I have the cost pool, which is the total overhead cost. So I can put that also. Then I need to identify a suitable cost driver for each activity. So that is also given in the question itself. For machining, cost driver is number of machine hours. For setup, number of production runs. This is number of machine hours. This is number of production runs for setups. Then for stores receiving, number of requisitions raised. Number of requisitions raised. Then for inspection or quality control, number of production runs again. Number of production runs again. Then material handling and dispatch, orders executed. So these are the cost drivers. Number of machine hours we can put here. We have calculated the number of machine hours earlier. So I will write here cost driver volume. Cost driver volume. Number of machine hours, total number of machine hours is 1300. Number of production runs. So the question says, here, it says the four products are similar and are usually produced in production runs of 20 units. So each production run is 20 units, or the size of each production run is 20 units. So we can calculate the number of production runs based on this information. I will take these details. That is for a work in. So output of A is 120, B 100, C 80, D 120. So based on this, I can calculate the production runs. Production runs. Each production run is for 20 units. So 120 divided by 20. 100 divided by 20, 80 divided by 20, 120 again divided by 20. So number of production runs, 6, 5, 4 and 6. So total production runs would be 21. So the answer here would be 21. The same answer we can put here, number of production runs again 21. Number of requisitions raised. There's information given for that in the question. At the bottom part of the question, it says the number of requisitions raised on the stores was 20 for each product. So 20 for each product. So since there are 4 products, total number of requisitions are 80. Total number of requisitions are 80. That is 20 into 4. Then orders executed. Again, for that there's an information given in the question. Number of orders executed was 42. Each order being placed for a batch of 10. So we are told number of orders executed is 42 and each order is for a batch size of 10. So what we can do here is we can first put the number of orders, which is 42. And here we can calculate individual orders based on the output. We are told each order executed is for a size of 10. So since for A we have an output of 120, we can divide 120 by 10 in order to calculate the orders of A. We can do the same thing for B, C and D. 100 divided by 10, 80 divided by 10 and 120 divided by 10. And I can get the total orders executed here, which is 42. So these are cost driver volumes. So based on the cost pool and cost driver volumes, I can now calculate the activity rates. So machining cost, 10,430 divided by 1,300 per machine hour. Then setup cost 5,250 divided by 21. Stores handling 3,600 divided by 80. Inspection 2,100 divided by 21. Material handling 4,620 divided by 42. So this is per production run. Per production run. This is per requisition. Again per production run. This is per order. So these are the activity rates for each of the activities. So based on these activity rates, now I can calculate the total cost per unit for each of the products. A, B, C, and D. So when I calculate the total cost of these products, direct material cost and direct labor cost I can take as given because there is no change in those costs. So from the previous calculation, let me take direct material and direct labor cost. There is no change in those. Now I'll come to overheads. Overhead cost I need to calculate for the 5 activities. So I have the 5 activities, and based on the 5 activities, I'm going to now calculate the overhead cost of these products. Right. So machining cost, I know the activity rate 8.023 per machine hour. So I take that rate into number of machine hours for total units of A. Now here for A, total number of machine hours is 480. So I can multiply. Here we are calculating the total cost per 1 unit. So therefore, to calculate the overhead cost of machines, I am taking the machine hour overhead rate into the number of machine hours for 1 unit of A. That is 32.09. In the same way, overhead rate per 1 machine hour, that is machining cost into number of machine hours of B. So I can repeat that. For C, same rate into 2 machine hours. For D, same rate into 3 machine hours. So those are the machining cost of each of these products. Then I can go to setup cost. I know the activity rate for setup cost, that is 250 per production run. 250 rupees per production run. For 1 unit of A, now I can calculate like this. So total output of A requires, if you focus here, if you focus this line, you will see total output of A requires 6 production runs. So what I can do here is activity rate is 250 rupees per production run into 6 production runs for the total output of A. This cost, which is the total overhead cost under setups for product category A, I can divide by the volume of A. Volume of A is 120. So I'll repeat that. What I did here is I took the activity rate, which is 250 rupees per production run, multiplied that by 6 production runs under category A, which gives me the total overhead cost for product category A. To get the unit cost, I have divided that by 120 units. That gives me setup overhead cost of 12.5 for 1 unit of A. I can do the same thing for 1 unit of B. 250 rupees per production run into 6 production runs under B, the total overhead cost I can divide by the output volume of B, which is 100. C also 250 rupees for production run into 4 production runs, that gives me total overhead cost for production runs divided by the volume of C. For D, the same calculation, 250 rupees into 6 production runs, which gives me the total production runs overheads divided by the output of D, 120. So for 1 unit under each product types, setup overhead cost is 12.5. Now I can go to third overhead, which is stores receiving. Stores receiving overhead absorption rate or the activity rate is 45 rupees per inspection. So at the rate of 45 rupees per inspection, there are 80 inspections in total and 20 inspections for each product type. So what I can do here is, since there are 20 inspections for product category A, I can multiply the activity rate by 20 and divide by the total volume of A, which is 120. I can do the same here. Activity rate is 45 rupees per acquisition. So 45 rupees per acquisition into again 20 requisitions for category B, divide by the total volume of B, 100. Same calculation, 45 rupees into 20 requisitions for C to get the cost per 1 unit, divide by the output. Here also same, 45 rupees per acquisition into 20 requisitions for D, 20 requisitions each for each product category. So 45 rupees into 20 requisitions in order to get the cost per 1 unit, divide by 120. So these are stores requisitioning or stores receiving cost for each product type. 7 rupees and 50 cents for 1 unit of A, 9 rupees for 1 unit of B, 11 rupees and 25 cents for 1 unit of C, and 7 rupees and 50 cents for 1 unit of D. I can now go to inspection or quality control cost, which is again based on production runs. The activity rate is 100 rupees per production run. For A, there are 6 production runs, divided by the volume of A, 120. The same way for B, 100 rupees per production run. There are 5 production runs for B, divided by the volume of B, 100. Again 100 rupees into 4 production runs, divided by the volume of C, 80. Again for D, 100 rupees into 6 production runs, divided by the volume of 120. So you get the same answer. Inspection cost per product in each of the categories is 5 rupees. Then we can go to material handling and dispatching. Material handling and dispatching is based on orders executed, and the rate is 110 rupees per order. So the overhead rate is 110 rupees per order. For category A, we have 12 orders. To get the unit cost, we can divide by the output, 120. B also 110 rupees per order into individual orders. For all products of B, there are 10 orders. So 110 into 10 divided by the volume of B, 100. For C also 110 rupees per order into the number of orders of C divided by volume of C. D also 110 rupees per order, that is the activity rate, into number of orders of D12 divided by output of D, 120. So in this way, we can calculate the total overhead cost for 1 unit for each of these products. So now I can take total overhead cost for 1 unit of each of these products, which is a subtotal here, 68 rupees and 10 cents for 1 unit of A, 61 rupees and 60 cents for 1 unit of B, 55 rupees and 80 cents for 1 unit of C, and 60 rupees and 10 cents for 1 unit of D. Now I can calculate the total cost per 1 unit. Total cost per 1 unit, that is overhead cost, direct labor cost, and direct material cost. So 136 rupees and 10 cents for 1 unit of A, 132 rupees and 60 cents for B, 99 rupees and 80 cents for C, 141 rupees and 10 cents for 1 unit of D. So this is the answer for 2.2. The total cost calculation based on activity-based costing method. So in 2.3, the examiner is asking briefly discuss the implications of the above two calculations on pricing and profit in relation to the products. So let's summarize the two calculations. That is the answer to 2.3. We'll have to summarize the computations in 2.1 and 2.2 and to give our recommendations. So we can say we have 4 products. A, B, C, and D. Total cost under absorption costing. Total cost under ABC. Thereafter, I can calculate difference. Okay, we'll come to that later. So, total cost under absorption costing for 1 unit of A is 148. For 1 unit of B is 131. For C, it is 84. And for 1 unit of D, 141. And ABC total cost for 1 unit of A is 136 rupees and 10 cents. For 1 unit of B, 132 and 60 cents. For 1 unit of C, 99 rupees and 80 cents. For 1 unit of D is 141 rupees and 10 cents. So difference. I will take the difference as absorption minus ABC. Absorption minus ABC. So for 1 unit of A, there's a difference of 11.9. In other words, under absorption costing, we have absorbed more overheads. So for product A, we can say overheads are overabsorbed. Overheads are overabsorbed. Therefore, the profitability of 1 unit of A is currently understated. I can do the same calculation for B, C, and D. So for 1 unit of B, under absorption costing, overheads are currently slightly underabsorbed. Slightly underabsorbed, which means profits are slightly overstated. So I will put the word here slightly. Overheads are slightly underabsorbed and profits are slightly overstated as a result. I'll put a heading here, over or under absorption. This is the impact to profits. Impact to profits. So for 1 unit of C, overheads are currently greatly underabsorbed. Greatly underabsorbed. Which means profits are greatly overstated. Profits are greatly overstated. For 1 unit of D, like B, overheads are slightly underabsorbed. Overheads are slightly underabsorbed and profits are slightly overstated. Okay, I'll summarize the work in here again. So what we did here in 2.3 is for each of the products, we have summarized the total cost under absorption costing and the total cost under ABC. So when we do that, we could see for 1 unit of A, overheads are overabsorbed by 11.9, and as a result, we can say currently for 1 unit of A, our profits are understated. For 1 unit of B, currently we are underabsorbing overheads by a slight amount, by a very small amount. As a result of that, our profits are slightly overstated. For 1 unit of C, overheads are greatly underabsorbed at the moment. The amount is 15 rupees and 80 cents per 1 unit. So overheads are greatly underabsorbed for 1 unit of C. Therefore, profits are overstated. For 1 unit of D, like B, overheads are slightly underabsorbed. As a result, profits are slightly overstated. So this is the answer to 2.3. So with this, we complete question number 1 and question number 2. Remember, question number 1 in this paper was a compulsory question. In fact, all questions are compulsory. Question number 1 carried 40 marks and it consisted of 20 multiple choice questions. We did that question, and also we did one question from the second part or part B, which carries 15 marks. So the remaining 3 questions, question number 3, 4 and 5, we'll discuss in another video lesson. Thank you very much.